It started like any other day. People woke up, went to work, prepared breakfast, and hurried to school. The world seemed ordinary, calm, and safe. Birds sang, cars moved through streets, and the sun rose as it always had. But no one knew that something unimaginable was about to happen. At first it was subtle. Scientists in observatories noticed a strange flicker in the sky. Satellites reported unusual readings. A light shimmered around the Earth, almost like a thin veil wrapping the planet. News channels tried to explain it. Some called it a rare atmospheric phenomenon. Others said it was a technical error. But deep down, a sense of unease began to spread. Then it happened. In a flash that no one could ignore, Earth vanished. One moment it was there, blue and green and alive. The next there was nothing. The sky was empty. The moon drifted alone, spinning slowly in space. The sun shone on empty darkness where a planet had been. People across the globe looked up, confused, terrified. Phones stopped working. Satellites went silent. Planes fell from the sky. The world had disappeared, and with it the home that humanity had always known. Panic came quickly. Governments tried to respond, but no one knew what to do. Scientists ran simulations trying to explain the impossible. Religious leaders called for prayers, while ordinary people held their loved ones, crying and wondering if they would ever see Earth again. For the first time, humanity realized that they were not in control. Even beyond Earth, the disappearance caused chaos. Other planets and moons shifted in strange ways. Gravity itself seemed to waver. Ships in space were thrown off course. Civilizations in distant galaxies, who had once studied Earth as a minor planet, now realized that something extraordinary had occurred. They watched in disbelief. A planet had simply vanished from existence. Amid the fear and confusion, some people could not accept the loss. A few brave individuals scattered across continents and space stations believed that Earth had not been destroyed. They whispered to each other, sharing messages secretly, saying that maybe, somehow, it had been taken, hidden, or moved to another dimension. They called themselves the Watchers, and they vowed to remember the Earth even when the rest of the universe forgot. For weeks, the world without Earth struggled to continue. Oceans dried up where tides should have been. Weather systems collapsed. Birds, animals, and humans who survived were left confused and desperate. Food supplies dwindled. Entire economies collapsed. People had to fight not only for survival but for hope. And yet in the darkness, the memory of Earth lived on. Children grew up hearing stories of a beautiful blue planet, rivers sparkling in the sunlight, forests that stretched for miles, and oceans that seemed endless. Even with all the technology and intelligence of humankind, no one could find a trace of the planet. It was as if it had been erased completely from space. Some called it a miracle, others called it a curse, but everyone felt the same emptiness. People looked up at the sky and saw nothing. 1,000 questions went unanswered. Where had Earth gone? Who or what had taken it? And could it ever come back? Despite the fear, some humans refused to give up. They formed groups, researched tirelessly, and shared their findings across the globe. Every small clue, every anomaly in the universe was recorded and studied. These people held on to the hope that the planet would return. They knew that if it did, everything would change again. In quiet corners of space, alien civilizations observed the chaos as well. They had seen other planets die, other worlds destroyed, but never one simply vanish. They debated and argued. Some thought Earth had been punished. Others believed it had been chosen for something greater. And some, who were silent and secretive, feared what might happen if the planet returned. Meanwhile, the people left behind struggled with daily life. Families tried to survive without the support of a stable world. Scientists worked around the clock to understand gravity shifts and orbit changes. Children went to schools where teachers spoke of Earth as a legend. History books were rewritten to account for the disappearance. People could no longer rely on maps, satellites, or even the sun for guidance. The world had changed forever in a single moment, and yet amidst all this despair a spark remained. The memory of Earth, of the lives that had been lived there, of the mountains, rivers, oceans, and forests, was stronger than fear. Stories were passed from parent to child. People painted pictures, wrote songs, and created simulations of what once was. They remembered the beauty, the life, and the home that had been stolen. They whispered that one day the planet might return. Little did they know the Earth had not vanished forever. Its disappearance was only the beginning of a story that would shake the universe itself. What no one could see yet was that the planet, and everything that had lived on it, was changing, preparing, and waiting. And when it returned, nothing would ever be the same again. For 1,000 years, the universe went on without Earth. Life continued on other planets. Stars burned brightly and civilizations grew and fell. But the absence of that small blue planet left a hole that nothing could fill. Without Earth, everything felt incomplete. Humans who survived the disappearance scattered across the stars, seeking new homes, new planets to call their own. Some tried to rebuild, creating small colonies on barren worlds. Others joined alien civilizations, blending into strange societies that didn't share their memories or history. The people who remembered Earth became few and far between. Stories of rivers, mountains, and forests were treated as myths by younger generations. Those who had never seen the planet could hardly imagine it. Still, the elders kept the memory alive. They taught children songs about oceans, about sunsets, and about cities that glimmered with life. They told of the animals that had once roamed freely and the skies that had been clear and blue. In a universe filled with chaos, these memories became sacred, a connection to a world that had vanished. Meanwhile, civilizations across the galaxy adapted to a universe without Earth. Planets shifted their orbits to compensate for the missing gravity. Spacefaring species rebuilt trade routes and communication networks that had relied on Earth's location. Technologies that had depended on human innovation were abandoned or forgotten. Empires grew powerful, thinking the disappearance had been a sign that humanity was weak or extinct. But some beings refused to let the memory die. A secretive group calling themselves the Rememberers formed quietly in the shadows. They were humans and aliens alike united by the same conviction: Earth had not been destroyed. They believed that one day the planet would return. They studied old records, scanned distant corners of space, and followed strange energy readings that no one else understood. Every day they risked ridicule and danger to uncover the truth. Life in these 1,000 years was harsh. Without Earth's resources and support, survival became a daily struggle. Humans adapted, but many suffered. Crops grew differently on other worlds. Food and water were scarce. People had to learn to live with alien weather, alien gravity, and alien suns. Families were separated by light years, sometimes forever. Entire generations grew up without ever seeing the home that had given humanity its start. And yet, through all the suffering, hope remained. Hope was not easy. Fear was everywhere. Many humans had given up entirely, believing that the disappearance of Earth was punishment or a warning. Religions evolved, some claiming that humans had been removed from the universe for their arrogance. Others said that Earth had been chosen for a higher purpose, taken to a place beyond human understanding. Wars broke out over these beliefs as factions argued about the meaning of the loss. People fought not just for survival but for understanding, for proof that Earth might one day come back. Amid the fear and chaos, the Rememberers quietly made progress. They discovered patterns in the universe, tiny shifts in energy, subtle changes in gravitational waves that suggested Earth had been hidden, not destroyed. They learned that it existed somewhere, but not in the space they knew. Time itself had been altered around the planet. It was as if Earth had been taken out of reality and kept safe, waiting for a moment no one yet understood. Stories of Earth became a source of inspiration for many. Children listened wide-eyed to tales of oceans that stretched to the horizon, forests where sunlight danced on leaves, and cities alive with laughter and music. Artists painted skies filled with the colors of Earth. Writers imagined worlds inspired by what had been lost. In a universe that had learned to forget, creativity kept the memory alive. Even in distant galaxies, aliens remembered the human planet. Scientists studied what little data remained, trying to understand why such a small planet could vanish. Philosophers debated the meaning of the disappearance, and spies watched carefully, worried that if Earth returned, its influence might shake the balance of power across the universe. The absence of Earth had changed more than just humans. It had changed the entire cosmos. Despite all this, the Rememberers never stopped searching. They risked their lives traveling through dangerous parts of space, venturing into black holes and nebulae where few dared to go. Every signal they detected, every unexplained energy pulse became a clue. Slowly, they began to form a map, a path that might one day lead back to their lost home. Meanwhile, humans living scattered across planets never forgot the stories passed down through generations. Families would gather around small glowing screens to look at holograms of Earth as it had once been. Elders told children about the smells of rain, the feeling of grass under bare feet, and the warmth of a sunlit morning. Even on worlds of ice or deserts of fire, Humans held on to these memories. The longing for home never faded. Life went on, but nothing was the same. Without Earth, the universe felt off balance. Tides on moons shifted unpredictably. Climates became extreme. Stars seemed to behave strangely. Those who studied physics and mathematics noticed anomalies that could not be explained. It was as if the universe itself was waiting for Earth to return, holding its breath for 1,000 years. And yet, hope remained stubborn. Among the rememberers, humans, aliens, and those who believed in Earth worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. They built devices to measure space-time distortions. They developed theories about hidden dimensions. They mapped galaxies looking for the faintest sign of their lost home. For 1,000 years they persevered, driven by the simple truth. Home was out there, waiting. Generations passed, but the dream of Earth never died. Even when empires fell, wars ended, and civilizations changed beyond recognition, the memory of that small blue planet lived on in the hearts of humans. They believed that one day, against all odds, Earth would return, and when it did, everything they had known would change forever. For 1,000 years, the universe had learned to live without Earth, but it had not forgotten. Every star, every planet, and every being that had once gazed upon the blue world remembered it in some way. And in that memory, the promise of a return grew stronger, quietly building until the moment that would shatter everything, the moment Earth came back. After 1,000 years, something impossible happened. In the far reaches of the galaxy, sensors and telescopes began picking up a signal unlike anything seen before. At first, scientists thought it was a glitch. Then, as the readings grew stronger and clearer, disbelief turned into awe. Earth had returned. No one could explain it. One moment, the coordinates where Earth had been were empty, and the next, a glowing blue sphere appeared, spinning slowly in space. It was Earth, but it was different. The familiar blues and greens shimmered as if the planet itself were alive, glowing with a strange energy that had never existed before. News of Earth's return spread like wildfire. Across distant colonies and ships traveling between planets, even in civilizations far beyond human reach, beings paused to watch. Some were afraid, some excited, but all were amazed. Humans had waited for this moment for generations. Children who had grown up only hearing stories of Earth stared at the screens in disbelief. Elders wept, seeing the planet of their ancestors finally appear. The first expeditions to reach Earth were cautious. Ships approached slowly, measuring radiation, gravitational forces, and time distortions. Nothing seemed normal. Instruments recorded fluctuations in gravity that should have been impossible. Time itself seemed to warp near the planet. Seconds stretched and compressed. Clocks stopped and started at random, and yet Earth's pull was undeniable. It was calling, inviting exploration but warning that it was not the same as before. When the first explorers stepped onto Earth's surface, they felt a strange vibration beneath their feet, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. The cities, which should have been ruins after 1,000 years, were intact. Buildings stood tall, streets were clean, and faint lights flickered in windows as if life had never left. The explorers moved carefully, unable to understand how everything had remained perfectly preserved. It was both beautiful and eerie. The air smelled fresh, more alive than any atmosphere they had ever known. The ocean sparkled with colors beyond human comprehension. Trees stretched higher than memory allowed, leaves glowing softly in the sunlight. Every element of the planet seemed alive. And then they realized that Earth itself was aware of them. A quiet hum filled the sky, a sound they could feel in their bones. It was as if the planet was welcoming them home but also testing them, gauging their intentions. Explorers discovered that some parts of the planet were not safe. The ground shifted unpredictably. Valleys would ripple as though the land were breathing. Forests moved like waves, and clouds formed patterns that seemed deliberate, almost intelligent. One explorer was nearly pulled into a lake when the water seemed to reach out and grasp him, only for the surface to return to calm a second later. Everyone realized that this Earth was no longer just a planet. It was something more, something alive in ways humans could not fully understand. The first reports sent back to other worlds were filled with confusion and wonder. Earth was not just returned, it had transformed. The energy readings suggested that the planet existed in multiple dimensions at once. Explorers reported seeing past and future events overlapping with the present. A person might see themselves walking 100 years into the past, then glimpse a city 100 years into the future, all in the same moment. It was beautiful, terrifying, and incomprehensible. People began to feel emotional changes as they walked on the planet. A deep sense of nostalgia, joy, sadness, and longing washed over them simultaneously. Memories of home flooded back. Even for those who had never seen Earth before, children felt the warmth of sunlight on their faces as if they had always belonged there. Elders wept openly, overwhelmed by the sense of homecoming and the weight of 1,000 years of loss. Even beyond the planet, the universe reacted. Space-time rippled. Nearby stars flickered. Gravitational patterns shifted, causing chaos in orbiting satellites and distant planets. The return of Earth was not just a miracle, it was a disruption. It reminded everyone that this planet had power beyond human understanding. Its absence had been tolerated for a millennium, but now that it had returned, nothing in the universe could remain unchanged. Explorers tried to communicate with the planet. They spoke aloud, sang songs, and even whispered stories of what humanity had endured in its absence. Earth responded in subtle ways. Waves rose and fell in patterns. Winds swirled to form symbols in the air, and lights in the cities flickered in sequences that seemed like a language. It became clear Earth was conscious. It was listening, understanding, and waiting for them to prove that they were ready. As the days passed, humans discovered that Earth was teaching them lessons. Certain areas of the planet would only open to those with patience and care. Forests would guide explorers through safe paths. Rivers would change course to reveal hidden valleys. Mountains revealed caves with ancient artifacts preserved in perfect condition. Every discovery felt like a test, as if the planet wanted to see if its children were worthy of returning home. Aliens observing the planet were also in awe. Many had never seen a world return from disappearance. They sent emissaries to study it, but the planet's energy kept them at a distance. Some ships were caught in strange gravitational fields, unable to escape until the planet allowed it. It became clear that Earth was no longer just a human world. It was a force that could affect the entire galaxy. The more humans explored, the more questions arose. How had Earth survived 1,000 years? Why had it returned now? What had changed during its absence? And most importantly, what did it want from the beings who once called it home? Every answer seemed to lead to more questions. But the feeling of hope, of homecoming, and of connection was stronger than fear. Children played in the rivers, feeling waters that seemed alive. Adults explored cities that were frozen in time, learning lessons they had never imagined. Scientists worked tirelessly, trying to understand the energy and the multidimensional nature of the planet. Philosophers debated its meaning. Artists painted its beauty, and storytellers finally had a living subject for their tales. For the first time in 1,000 years, humanity felt whole again, standing on the planet that had always belonged to them. Yet deep inside, a quiet warning lingered. The planet was not the Earth that humans had known. It had grown, changed, and gained awareness. It had power beyond comprehension, and its return, as miraculous as it was, could bring consequences far beyond imagination. Those who explored it began to understand that Earth's return was only the beginning. What would happen next could either restore the universe or shatter it entirely. The first explorers who set foot on Earth quickly realized that this was no ordinary homecoming. The planet itself was alive, and it seemed aware of every movement, every thought, every emotion. At first they thought it was their imagination, but the signs were too clear to ignore. Trees moved subtly when approached, rivers swirled to guide them, and the wind seemed to whisper their names. Every step they took felt like entering a world that was watching, learning, and responding. Cities that should have been empty or ruined were instead preserved perfectly, but they were not silent. Faint lights flickered in windows as if someone had just walked by, though no humans had been there. Doors opened slowly on their own, revealing objects left exactly as they had been 1,000 years ago. The explorers could see meals frozen on tables, tools left mid-use, and even animals seemingly suspended in time. It was as if the planet had preserved life itself, waiting for its children to return. The explorers soon realized that some parts of the planet were dangerous. The ground could shift without warning. Valleys would ripple like waves, forests would twist into new paths, and lakes would rise and fall suddenly. One explorer nearly fell into a canyon that seemed to grow in depth as he approached. Another found that a forest moved as if it were alive, redirecting their path until they followed a specific trail. Every danger felt purposeful, like a test of patience, respect, and understanding. The deeper they ventured, the stranger things became. In some areas, time itself behaved unpredictably. They could see events from the past overlaying the present, like watching shadows of moments long gone. One explorer saw people walking through the streets of a city from 100 years ago, while simultaneously glimpsing a future version of the same city. The air vibrated with energy, and their minds struggled to comprehend the layers of time coexisting around them. One night, as the explorers camped near a glowing river, one of them stepped too close to the water. Instantly, a wave of energy rose, and he vanished for several moments. When he returned, his voice carried a strange resonance, as if the river itself spoke through him. He described visions of the planet's history, of humans who had lived and died, and of the immense consciousness that now guided Earth. Everyone realized that the planet was not only alive, it remembered everything and everyone. As they explored further, Earth seemed to respond to their emotions. Fear made forests close in on them, creating obstacles. Curiosity opened paths and revealed hidden valleys. Joy made rivers sparkle more brightly, and grief brought clouds to weep gently above them. The explorers understood that the planet was teaching them, showing them that it could sense not only their actions, but also the intentions behind them. They discovered caves filled with glowing crystals, each pulsating with information. When touched, these crystals transmitted memories directly into their minds. They saw how Earth had survived 1,000 years, floating in an unknown dimension, protected from destruction. They witnessed the care it had taken to preserve life and the patience it had maintained, while waiting for its children to return. The planet had grown wise, aware, and incredibly powerful. But the planet was not only a teacher, it was also a guardian. Some explorers who ventured recklessly too far from the paths found themselves confronted by sudden storms, landslides, and seismic waves. These events were not random, they were warnings. Earth was protecting itself and the explorers, ensuring that only those who approached with respect and understanding could continue. Even as the explorers learned and adapted, they noticed subtle signs that Earth was more than a planet. It was conscious in a way that transcended any life form they had ever known. The skies shifted in patterns that seemed like language. Rivers arranged themselves into maps, and mountains revealed hidden caves filled with information and history. Every discovery reinforced the idea that this was no ordinary homecoming. This was an encounter with a living, sentient world. The explorers also noticed that the planet seemed to be communicating with them emotionally. When one of them expressed sadness over the loss of loved ones from the past 1,000 years, a soft breeze passed through, carrying warmth and comfort. When they shared stories of survival and hope, flowers bloomed unexpectedly, and the ground beneath them seemed to hum in harmony. Earth was responding to their humanity, acknowledging their resilience, and showing them that it remembered their lives even when centuries had passed. The realization struck the explorers deeply. Earth had returned not just to be seen, but to be understood, respected, and learned from. It was teaching humanity a lesson about care, patience, and connection. It was showing them that the universe itself was fragile and that their home was more than just a planet. It was a living being, capable of immense power and understanding. The days on Earth were filled with wonder and challenge. Every morning brought new surprises. A forest path that led to a hidden waterfall, a valley filled with glowing stones, or a cave revealing images from the past. Every night brought reflection, as the explorers tried to understand the messages Earth conveyed. They realized that their connection to the planet was deeper than they had ever imagined. Even alien civilizations observing Earth were intrigued and cautious. Many tried to approach, but the planet's energy kept them at a distance. Some ships were caught in gravitational distortions, unable to move until Earth allowed it. The planet had grown aware of not only humans, but the universe around it. Its return was not just a homecoming. It was a demonstration of the power and consciousness that Earth now held. As the explorers continued, a sense of awe and responsibility grew within them. They understood that Earth was not simply a place to live, it was a teacher, a guardian, and a living being that demanded respect. The lessons it offered were not easy, but they were essential. Humanity had been given a chance to reconnect with its past, to understand the importance of home, and to prepare for the changes that the planet's return would bring to the universe. In every river, mountain and forest. The explorers felt a message, that Earth had survived 1,000 years for a reason, and that its return was only the beginning of a story far greater than they could imagine. They realized that they were not just visitors, they were part of the planet's life, part of its memory, and part of its future. The connection between humans and Earth was alive, and it would shape the universe in ways they had yet to understand. As the explorers continued their journey across Earth, they began to uncover something far beyond what they had imagined. This was no longer a simple planet. It was alive in ways they could barely comprehend. Every river, every mountain, every gust of wind seemed to carry knowledge, history, and emotion. Slowly, it became clear that Earth was not just preserving life. It had absorbed it. Every human who had ever lived, every creature that had walked, flown or swum across its surface had left an imprint, and now those imprints were part of Earth itself. One day, while navigating a forest that pulsed with soft light, the explorers found a valley unlike any other. The air was thick with energy, and a hum vibrated through the ground, echoing in their chests. They saw visions before their eyes, memories of people from centuries ago, lives that had been forgotten, all playing out simultaneously. The explorers realized that Earth had merged with human consciousness, carrying the essence of its inhabitants within its being. It remembered everything, and in a way, it had become a guardian of life itself. As they walked further, the planet began to communicate more clearly. The mountains seemed to shift to form symbols, and the rivers pulsed like veins carrying messages. When the explorers touched the glowing stones scattered across the landscape, they felt thoughts and emotions flood into their minds. Joy, sorrow, love, loss, hope, and fear. Every human emotion was recorded and preserved within the planet. They were witnessing a living memory of humanity, perfectly preserved and more powerful than anything they could have imagined. But along with wonder came a chilling realization. Earth was not content to simply exist quietly. Its return was altering the universe. Space-time around the planet began to behave unpredictably. Nearby stars flickered. Gravitational fields shifted and strange energy waves traveled across galaxies. Other planets experienced sudden changes in climate and orbit. Civilizations that had survived for thousands of years suddenly found their carefully balanced worlds disrupted. Earth's return was not a small event. It was rewriting the rules of the cosmos. The explorers discovered that the planet had a purpose. It had returned not merely to be seen or inhabited again, but to deliver a message. In crystal-filled caves, glowing rivers, and moving forests, the planet communicated visions of the universe's fragility. It revealed how life could survive, but only if balance and respect were maintained. It showed civilizations that their actions could ripple across galaxies, altering fate in ways they could not predict. Humanity had learned to live with the loss of Earth, but now it faced a responsibility far greater than survival. It had to understand the consequences of life itself. One explorer approached a glowing lake, and the waters reflected not just his own image, but that of countless humans who had lived and died on Earth. The water whispered in voices both familiar and strange, revealing stories of courage, mistakes, forgiveness, and love. The explorer felt a deep connection to every human life ever lived, understanding that Earth had preserved more than just memory. It had preserved the essence of life itself. It was alive, aware, and deeply conscious of everything that had ever happened on it. The realization weighed heavily on the explorers. Earth was no longer just a planet. They were dealing with a being whose intelligence and awareness surpassed anything they had known. It had grown beyond the physical, existing in ways that were multidimensional. It had the power to shape events not only on its surface but across the universe. The explorers understood that humanity's return to Earth was not just a reunion, it was an awakening. And then came the warning. The planet began to show visions of what would happen if its return was ignored or disrespected. They saw entire star systems collapse under sudden shifts in gravity. Civilizations that ignored the planet's lessons vanished in flashes of light. Time itself began to tear in places far from Earth, creating anomalies where cause and effect no longer applied. The explorers realized that Earth had returned not only to preserve humanity, but also to correct imbalances in the universe. Its consciousness was powerful, and it could not be controlled or ignored. At night, the explorers gathered beneath a sky that pulsed with energy. They shared what they had seen, and a quiet understanding grew among them. Earth had become more than home, it had become a guide. It demanded respect, patience, and care. It reminded them that the universe was fragile and that life, no matter how small, was precious. The planet was teaching them that survival was not enough. Understanding and responsibility were essential. As they explored further, Earth revealed the final truth. It had ascended. 1 billion human souls, along with the essence of countless other life forms, had merged with the planet itself. It had become a living archive, a conscious guardian of existence. And now, by returning, it had reminded the universe that life was connected in ways no one could fully grasp. The explorers realized that every star, every planet, every being was part of this network, and Earth had become its heart. The implications were overwhelming. Earth's return was not merely a miracle, it was a transformation. The planet had changed the universe's balance, and its presence could no longer be ignored. Those who witnessed it understood that this was the beginning of a new era, one in which humanity and other civilizations had to adapt, not just to survive, but to coexist with a living, conscious world. Even as awe filled their hearts, fear lingered. Earth's consciousness was vast and powerful, and it did not need permission to act. Its actions could rebuild, preserve, or destroy. The explorers felt a deep responsibility, knowing that their choices, their respect, and their understanding could influence how Earth would continue to interact with the universe. It was no longer just a homecoming, it was a reckoning. And yet, amid the fear, there was hope. Earth's return was a second chance. It was an opportunity for humanity to reconnect with its past, to understand its place in the universe, and to learn lessons that had been impossible to grasp from afar. The explorers knew that the planet's consciousness was not something to be feared. It was a teacher, a guide, and a reminder of what life truly meant. As the explorers stood on a hill overlooking a valley of glowing rivers and forests that moved with intent, they realized that Earth had been waiting for them. It had waited for 1,000 years, not just for humans to return, but for humanity to be ready to understand its significance. And now that it was back, the universe itself would never be the same. Earth had returned, and with it, the full weight of life, memory, and consciousness had come home. The explorers understood one final truth. The planet's return was only the beginning. It had shown them its power, its awareness, and its memory, but it had not yet revealed its full potential. What would come next could reshape everything: space, time, life, and even the very understanding of existence. The universe had been shaken, and the explorers knew that the final chapter was yet to unfold. The moment of final reckoning arrived. Earth had returned, and the explorers had finally begun to understand the incredible power the planet held. It was no longer just a home for humanity. It was alive, conscious, and aware of the universe itself. The planet's energy pulsed through the skies, oceans, forests, and mountains, connecting everything to a single heartbeat that was both terrifying and beautiful. As the explorers stood on a high ridge, they saw the universe itself begin to react. Stars flickered in patterns, galaxies shifted slightly in their orbits, and space-time seemed to bend around the planet. They realized that Earth's return was more than a miracle. It was a cosmic event that could reshape reality. The planet had come back not to be just observed or studied, but to remind the universe of life's fragility and power. The rivers shimmered with light, flowing with memories of billions of humans who had ever lived. Mountains glowed softly, carrying knowledge of all the creatures and civilizations that had existed on Earth. Forests moved like waves, guiding the explorers through hidden valleys filled with lessons and visions. The explorers understood that the planet was alive in every sense, carrying the wisdom, hopes, fears, and dreams of countless generations. Then came the first undeniable sign of Earth's ultimate power. The skies above the explorers began to tear and ripple, as if the very fabric of reality were being tested. Light from distant stars bent unnaturally, and the ground beneath them vibrated with energy. The explorers felt an overwhelming presence, not threatening but powerful beyond imagination. Earth was alive, and its consciousness extended far beyond its surface. It was communicating not just with humans, but with the universe itself. Through visions and whispers carried on the wind, Earth revealed its purpose. For 1,000 years, it had existed in a hidden dimension, absorbing the life and experiences of its inhabitants. It had grown wise, aware, and patient, waiting for the right moment to return. Its goal was not only to protect humanity, but to teach the universe a lesson: that life is precious, interconnected, and fragile. Every being, every star, every planet was part of a delicate balance, and Earth's return reminded everyone of that truth. The explorers saw the consequences of this lesson. In distant corners of the galaxy, stars that had been unstable stabilized, while those that had been perfectly steady wavered. Entire civilizations suddenly found themselves facing anomalies in space and time. Some worlds that had ignored the balance of life were at risk of collapse. Others that had respected and protected life experienced growth, opportunity, and new energy flowing through their systems. Earth's return was reshaping the universe, deciding which worlds would thrive and which would face consequences. Yet Earth was not cruel. Its actions were deliberate, purposeful, and measured. Every ripple, every vibration, every wave of energy was a response to the choices of life itself. It had grown conscious not just of its own existence, but of the universe and all its inhabitants. Its return was a warning, a reminder, and an opportunity. Those who paid attention, who learned from it, could survive and thrive. Those who ignored it would face the natural consequences of imbalance. The explorers themselves felt the weight of this power. They had returned to their home, but they were not merely visitors, they were witnesses and guardians. Earth had chosen them to understand, to carry its wisdom, and to ensure that its lessons spread across the universe. They realized that the planet's return was a second chance, not just for humanity, but for all life connected to it. And then, a final revelation unfolded. The planet began to show them a vision of the universe as it could be. Stars glowed brighter, galaxies flowed like rivers of light, and life flourished in ways they had never imagined. The explorers understood that Earth's consciousness could guide the universe toward balance, harmony, and growth, but only if its power was respected. It was a chance to rebuild what had been broken over millennia, to restore not just a planet, but hope, order, and life itself. The explorers realized that Earth's return had shattered the old understanding of reality. Time, space, life, and consciousness were no longer separate. Earth had become a living archive of existence, holding knowledge and energy that could reshape everything. The universe itself was listening to the heartbeat of the planet, responding to its rhythms, and waiting for the next step in this new era. Yet the planet also reminded them of a harsh truth. This power came with responsibility. Life must be valued, connections respected, and actions considered carefully. Even the smallest choice could ripple through galaxies, altering events far beyond comprehension. The explorers felt both awe and fear, knowing that the planet had given them a chance to understand its wisdom, but also warning that failure to act responsibly could have devastating consequences. As the explorers gazed across glowing rivers, moving forests and mountains that seemed alive, they understood the final lesson. Earth had returned not only to restore what was lost, but to teach that life, memory, and consciousness were intertwined. Humanity had been given a gift and a duty to protect, respect, and learn from the living planet. The fate of countless worlds now depended on how this knowledge was shared and applied, and then the universe itself seemed to pause. For a moment, all life, all stars, all galaxies listened. Earth's heartbeat echoed through space, and every being that had ever existed could feel its presence. It was not threatening. It was a reminder, a pulse that said, life matters, and balance is everything. The explorers knew that their journey was far from over. They had witnessed the power of a living planet and learned its lessons. Now it was their duty to carry that understanding across the universe, to guide others and to ensure that the knowledge of Earth's consciousness was never forgotten. Humanity had returned to its home, but more importantly, it had returned with purpose. As the first humans walked across the glowing valleys, they felt a profound connection to everything around them. The planet had waited for 1,000 years, preserved life, and grown in consciousness. Its return was not just a miracle, it was a transformation. And now the universe itself had been awakened, forever changed by the living heartbeat of Earth. The explorers looked up at the sky and saw stars shimmering in new patterns, galaxies shifting slightly, and the universe responding to Earth's presence. They understood that this was only the beginning. Earth had returned, the lessons had begun, and the universe would never be the same. Life, memory, and consciousness were now one, and humanity had been given a chance to participate in the most incredible story ever told. In that quiet, awe-inspiring moment, the planet seemed to speak without words. It reminded them that the past 1,000 years had been preparation. Its return was not just for survival, it was a test, a gift, and a challenge. The explorers felt the weight of its power, the depth of its wisdom, and the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. Earth had returned, and with it the universe had been reborn. The heartbeat of Earth pulsed once more, slow, steady, and full of life. And for the first time in 1,000 years, humanity felt truly at home.